Hey everyone, it's Jodi here. Welcome to Monday Morning Live Coaching with me. Today we're going to talk about the teen mental health crisis. That is something that I talk about a lot because I'm doing my capstone project on it for my doctorate degree at Simmons. And so I'm editing a video right now because I want to give you all of the information that I found when I was preparing for this program. It's so interesting to me and I'm so passionate about it. And if you have any young people in your life, all ages actually, because people are struggling all over the place, that you know that this is something that is important for us to figure out the whys and to do something about it, because the consequences are huge. And I'm just going to, in this video, because this is live and it's not going to be that long, this other video is about an hour that I'm going to post later on today. But I just wanted to talk to you about one aspect of the problem, one correlation between why the teen mental health problem has been rising in the last 2 decades, specifically the last decade. Because really Generation Z, how Generation Z defines themselves, or how I guess whoever defines Generation Z, is because these young people had smartphones from middle school. So they had smartphones from middle school. So it's pretty obvious. Sorry, I keep saying so all the time, but it's pretty obvious that screen time is a huge correlation, and it is. The research have shown that the increased use of screens has increased our mental health problems. There's a relationship. So correlation means there's a relationship between these things. But a lot of the researchers haven't identified specifically the mechanisms for why screen time has made it worse. And there's theories about that. Some are my own theories that I write about in my book and I talked about in my TEDx talk, my TEDx Wilmington talk. And I'm going to talk about those in this video. Some of my theories on why, the mechanisms on why screen time and the increased use of screens have caused the mental health problems among young people to increase. But first, let's look at some of the correlations, some of the research that says there is for sure a relationship here. And we can't say this is the cause. That's why they call it correlations. Cause means that they've eliminated every other variable and they know that screen time causes mental health problems. Correlation means there's a relationship here, but there's a lot of other variables. And we think that there's this relationship and there's strong evidence that this relationship is a cause. But we don't have that for sure, just to know some of the terminology. It's important to understand because a lot of times we hear statistics in media or we read about it in a book or whatever, and we need to know the context of what they're talking about. When it's a theory, when it's the truth, when it's like, what do these words mean? And so this means a relationship. So listen to some of this. So there's this Pew Research Center surveyed 743 American adolescents ages 13 to 17 in 2018. So remember, 2018 was before the pandemic, found that 95% of them had access to a smartphone. That's pretty anecdotally, we kind of understand that. We see that 45% of those participants said they were online almost constantly, primarily using social media applications. So we have to add a little bit to that because in the last 4 years, things have changed, even in the last 4 years. So 4 years ago, 45% said I'm online almost constantly. And then we went through the pandemic. So another research that was also pre-pandemic found that suicide-related outcomes. So suicide-related outcomes are someone thinking about it, somebody attempting it, somebody completing it, all of the different aspects of suicide. And so these are really grave consequences. So as anxiety and depression increase among young people, there's a lot of consequences of that. Devastating consequences in suicide, which is doubling. It's a second leading cause of death among young people. This is a huge problem that we really have to address. So they found that after 1 hour of screen time, the suicide-related outcomes increased by 29%. After 2 hours of screen time, it increased to 33%. After 5 hours of screen time, it increased to 48%. And after 5 hours, 66%. So after 5 hours of screen time, suicide-related outcomes increased 66%. That was before the pandemic. Imagine if you have a young person, how long are they spending on their phones or watching something or any kind of screen, right? This is all screen time. A lot more than 5 hours, right? So this is something that's hugely concerning. If you think about it, when people are struggling with anxiety and depression, they're feeling increasingly out of control. They feel powerless. They're feeling worthless. And so those increase feeling out of control, increase anxiety. So the anxiety, it causes anxiety and increases anxiety. So those things lead people to get, control seeking behaviors. So those control-seeking behaviors could be focused on the self. So they could be suicidal related outcomes. There could be self-harm. There could be substance abuse, eating disorders. Those kind of things are focused on the self. Perfectionism, right? All these things that we are trying to get control over something to help regulate those emotions, to help us feel like we have control over something. And then there's control-seeking behaviors over other people, like teen peer violence or teen dating violence or discrimination. Those things are also increasing because of people really trying to regulate their own emotions and kind of take control over some situations or some other people to help them feel in control when they feel out of control. So these are huge problems. I talk about it in that longer video when I'm giving some more information. But in this video, I really wanted to just focus on the screen time. And if you have any questions at all, let me know. And I'll hopefully answer it live. If not, if you're watching the recording, stick those comments below and I'll come back and answer that for you. So this one theorist thought about there's two reasons, identified two reasons that I don't know if you hear it, but my my stomach is growling. I apologize. So two reasons why screen time causes low self-esteem and depression. And one is that it interrupts users' connectedness or sense of belonging. And then the other one, it affects their mattering, how they perceive as their importance to others. And so those are going to be important factors, but how are those things interrupted? How does screen time affect connectedness and belonging? And how does screen time affect people's perceived importance of themselves and importance of others? Relationships. So this is more my theory, but it's backed up by other research as well. And if you want more details on this, look for that longer video. So go to my YouTube channel. It's not up now, not as I'm doing this live, but it will be in the next hour or two. So, and this is also in my TEDx Wilmington talk. So you could look up Jodi 𝔼𝕗 and TEDx and you could find this as well. So I find the mechanisms are increased encouragement to compare yourself to other people, increased encouragement to motivate purchasing, and increased secondary trauma that we experience because we have our phones in our hands all the time. And so these messages that are constantly accessing us, right? We are accessible to all of these messages that are coming, and that's the problem. So our increased use of phone means we're increasingly accessible to receiving these kind of messages. And comparison culture is a Western culture issue. So in Western culture, with these ideals of society that we think we should measure up to in order to belong. In order to have that sense of belonging, we need to make sure, and we don't really know what they are. And so we have to overshoot to make sure we're okay, actually. And so the standards of like beauty, to be perfectly beautiful and be really cool and thin and young and, all of these like ideals of society. we can never meet those. They're unrealistic. And so we constantly are thinking that we're inadequate because we're not meeting them. And this encourages comparison culture. So we look at other people and we compare ourselves to them to see how we're measuring up. And if we're going to be considered by other people around us as inadequate and then like kicked out of the group. Um, with so much time on social media, this just really encourages this comparison culture, making us feel worse and worse about ourselves. So yes, there's cyberbullying, and yes, there's people leaving each other out, but there's also constant comparison. So it's our culture intensified. This comparison culture in Western culture intensified. So our feelings of inadequate increase the more time we spend on social media, because all these messages are like, you got to be cool, you got to be smart, you got to be beautiful, you have to post the right things and get the most likes and but yada yada yada, right? So the second thing I talked about is this increasing purchasing. So companies want to sell their products and they don't want people to think that they have to work hard to earn the money to buy their stuff. They want them to just think they deserve it just because they're them, and of course they do. We all deserve tons of stuff we don't get, but they deserve it just for being them, and they should just get it because this stuff is cool and you should get it, right? So it's kind of eliminating that middleman of like cause and effect. You have to do something to earn something. You have to do something to earn something. So kids are growing up without that concept of causality, knowing that something has to go into this, and it's like random. You should just be able to buy it. It's subliminal, it's not necessarily conscious, but what happens is do you ever see, like, a toddler in a grocery store and, the parent says no, or the caregiver says no to buying candy, and they're crying as if they're unworthy, like, there's a grief there. That's what I'm talking about. This is happening subconsciously, constantly to us. Even as adults, we feel this. But young people have not had, like, when I was young, there was a little more work ethic. In the industrial age, there was culturally, we had to teach people that they had to work hard was good. And so we kind of had this work ethic going, and now we changed the information age, and that's not necessary for us to serve all these industries anymore. And so we don't have a culture that puts this work ethic in anymore. I don't know if I'm making any sense in this video at all, but I kind of delayed going live because I was like, I hope I make sense today. So much to share, but it's hard to like consolidate it and make it make sense. All right. So we lost this idea of cause and effect in this work ethic. And so because companies really just want us to buy stuff without having that stopper in it, without having that stopper, like you have to earn this. Of course, that's not going to sell anything. But this is really affecting our feelings of out of control because we don't know why we don't get it, because you learned causality. We haven't learned that concept. And so we don't know why we don't get it. And it increases our feeling of out of control and powerlessness and worthlessness. And the last one is secondary trauma. So we see horrible things happening all around the world. And it's important for us to be informed. It's not that. It's just that our sympathetic nervous system is triggering, but there's nothing we could do because we're on our couch watching this happen. And so we feel more helpless, and we feel like things are happening that are really, really random and out of control. And it makes us feel out of control, powerless, and worthless to be able to do anything. And so all of these messages, being on the phone all the time, increases comparison culture. It increases it disconnects us from causality. It disconnects us to our agency, that we're an agent in our life, that we could do something. We could do something to make things happen. So it interrupts all of that. So I hope that was really helpful. There's so much to say about why this problem is increasing and how our understanding of mental health is actually hurting what we need to do to get better. So check out this video about my capstone project. So I'm about to really embrace my moniker, Dr. Jodi, because I'm about to graduate with my doctorate in social work from Simmons University. And so I'm sharing my capstone project that I need to do for graduation in this video. So check that out because I think you're going to be really interested. If you care about a teen in your life at all, somewhere, you're going to really love that video. So thank you so much for watching, and come hang out with me next Monday. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about yet next Monday, but I will be here for you. And put a comment below if there's something you want me to talk about.